Our world changes. We'll keep you up to date with the latest information. News Talk KVNU 102 FM 610 AM.
KVNU News Time is 5:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by U&I Furniture. Parents, students, and teachers continue to voice their concerns over whether or not LGBTQ pride flags should be displayed in classrooms during the Logan City School District Board of Education meeting last week. The public comment section of the meeting was opened by Andrea Norton, a parent of a student at Logan High School who said her child has been bullied since elementary school for being who they are. Norton said the symbols found on the doors of classrooms are a small but effective way of supporting students. Norton concluded asking the board to be careful with the message it sends to the students, since mental health has been directly correlated to a student's performance in school. Logan School District has a reputation of being more inclusive than the surrounding school district. Former educator and member of the LCSD board, Connie Morgan, said she worked at a school that had one of the first gay-straight alliance clubs and said that none of the dreadful things people thought would happen did happen. She asked the board if the safety of students was more important than the comfort of adults. KVNU News Time is 5:06. KVNU weather for tonight, mostly clear skies, low around 40, and then sunny, mid-70s tomorrow, mid-70s on Wednesday. It's been to 70 degrees. Right now it's 69 at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by Adams Wealth Advisors. They put clients first under any circumstance. You'll receive peace of mind with Adams Wealth Advisors. Schedule a time with an advisor today. Call 752-1702 or visit adamswealthadvisors.com.
The showroom is full. The warehouse is full. Orders from the last 12 months are all showing up at U&I Furniture, and they're stocked up. U&I has lots of furniture for you to shop and see. Plus, with inflation on the rise, manufacturers are lowering prices. It all adds up to a really good time to furniture shop for upholstered furniture like sofa, loves, sectionals, recliners, and more. U&I features American-made name brands to imports. Local deliveries available. They've been saying it for over 90 years, and it's now more true than ever. It's always a better buy at U&I Furniture in downtown Logan.
KVNU News Time is 5:07. A man accused of killing a Utah woman in 2015 has been arrested. Court documents stated that Francisco Jesus Huerta Martinez was booked into the Salt Lake County Jail on Saturday on counts of murder and aggravated robbery, both first-degree felonies, and obstructing justice, a second-degree felony. The investigation began in the days after August 6, 2015, when, according to police, Maria Astorga Chavez dropped her son off at her sister's home in Salt Lake County with plans to pick him up the next morning. Astorga Chavez got into a car driven by Huerta Martinez. She was last heard from just after 1 a.m. on August 7th, 2015, after sending a message to her cousin. According to a probable cause statement, Huerta Martinez met a friend in Fort Worth, Texas on August 9th and told them he had strangled a person to death, wrapped the body in a blanket, and dumped the body off the side of the road in the mountains of Colorado. Huerta Martinez allegedly said he had plans to travel to Mexico. Officers reported finding a bus manifesto from to Mexico from August 10th, 2015, with Huerta Martinez's name on it. Astorga Chavez's body was found wrapped in comforters on August 16th, 2015, in Summit County, Colorado. Court documents stated that Huerta Martinez's residence was searched on August 18th that year, where a bag was found with a picture of the same comforter Astorga Chavez was found with. And a group of researchers at BYU is looking for ways to detect autism in children earlier, and they are using dirty diapers to do it. Associate Professor Rebecca Lundwall is hoping to find a new way to test for autism in younger kids. She's collecting samples from dirty diapers to help find links between what's in that diaper and what's going on in the brain. Lundwall said some of the byproducts of the bacteria that live in your gastrointestinal tract produce precursors to neurotransmitters that act on your brain. Lindwall is hoping this could be used in the future to develop a biological test for autism in young children. She said if they can catch these kids earlier, get them the kind of help they need so they can live full, happy lives, that would make her very happy. KVNU News Time is 5:10. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
The latest news 24/7. News Talk KVNU 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
From chronic knee pain to sports injuries, Dr. Marlo Goebel treats it all right here in Cache Valley. There's no reason to allow knee pain to slow life down anymore. Dr. Goebel is currently accepting new patients and is one of the top 25 knee surgeons in the country. When you choose Dr. Goebel, you can rest assured that your health is in the best hands. Dr. Goebel takes pride in what he does and has a passion for providing superior health care to the community. To schedule your appointment, visit our website at goebelmedical.com.
On the battlefield, there's a saying America's military men and women live by. Never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Off the battlefield, Wounded Warrior Project operates with the same goal. Wounded Warrior Project was created to help our men and women returning home with the scars of war, whether those scars are physical or mental. Wounded Warrior Project. We never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Learn more about what we do at woundedwarriorproject.org.
Frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out. But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, that frog will boil. As a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans, it's a story that rings true. We learn to endure the heat in silence. We apply what we learn to life, the bills, the job, the family, things we're expected to handle with ease. When life heats up around us, we just try to stay afloat. We let the water boil. Reaching out isn't easy, but you've never been interested in easy. You join because you are not afraid of hard work. You are not a frog. If you or a veteran you know needs support, don't wait until the water boils. Reach out. Find resources at va.gov/reach. That's va.gov/reach. Brought to you by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and the Ad Council.
I'm hiding from my hand. Why don't people understand my intention?
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People, hour 2 of today's show. It is research being conducted at Utah State University that we start hour 2 of today's show off with. Research of a very, very unique kind. A professor in the Environment and Society Department of the Quinney College of Natural Resources, Joseph Tainter, is doing something very unique. And how he would conduct this research is beyond me, to be honest with you. But it is underway at Utah State University, research into innovation and invention. And the results so far, the title of the first press release on this is The End of Invention, research examining costs and value of innovation. And it starts out, I love this. Joe Tainter is probably fun to chat with at parties. For the past 30 years, he studied the collapse of civilization. I don't know. I think that could be an interesting party conversation. But he's researched everything from the climate change and climate catastrophe to meteoric impacts along the New York City skyline and the eventual fate of humanity in a theoretical way, of course, there at the Quinney College of Natural Resources. And in this specific research, he's digging into the complexities of a society from the perspective of innovation, its costs, barriers to innovation, which can be everything from patenting law to investment and energy research to development, impotence to developments with people not wanting to invest in really risky ideas. And technology, of course, has kind of changed the game. Tainer writes that technological optimists, as he calls them, think that we can innovate our way out of every problem forever, but history tells us eventually you run up against that thing that you can't. And he says you can hardly blame anyone for having hope and being optimistic about this, and we do have quite a track record so far, but he said eventually there's going to be something that we can't just, innovate our way out of, come up with some new technology to solve things like that. He mentions as a specific example nitrogen fertilizers. He said, this was a huge breakthrough, kind of along the lines of penicillin, as far as how it changed farmland and agriculture and food scarcity, its reduction of food scarcity. He cites air conditioning as a huge thing as well. Refrigeration, that's a long-forgotten innovation, but refrigeration itself literally changed the world. So he said there's a lot of reason to have faith in these ongoing ideas and advances in science and technology, and to believe, honestly, that they'll continue forever into a bright future. But he said what we see, researching past civilizations, researching our own, and things that have slowed down over time, especially in the last couple of decades, as everything seems to be speeding up. Tainer writes that over time, innovation in some very important areas kind of peters out. Because it's no longer improving people's lives in the way everyone wants it to. It's not making a big enough difference. So investment dries up. And he says this, of course, doesn't mean the end of life or the end of our civilization. But he said what it does mean is there's a dramatic shift in the pace of change and social systems that are entirely built and bank on, especially investment, for example, innovation successes, will start to point elsewhere, and that will be a further drag on innovation. It'll become harder and harder for those with ideas to get the funding necessary to get them up and running, whether it's technology or something in healthcare. Tainer says he and his colleagues have been examining a gigantic database of patents in the U.S. and overseas, and found a couple of different trends. They found that during the mid-'70s, it was really common for a single person or a small group of people, 4 or 5 people, to submit an application for a new patent. But since the 70s, they've seen a significant and notable change in the size of the average research team, which has increased dramatically. And he said, so the number of patents per year has also dropped, by the way. But he said what this means is that it's harder and harder for an individual or a small group of people to get something off the ground, so their ideas slip through the cracks. But those who have a larger team and can attract a lot of media attention or investors into the mix will see their ideas get off the ground, and that is limiting, of course. I mean, you don't have to be a research scientist to know that. So Tainer says, barring unforeseen developments or some new system of innovation which heads in a different direction, he said innovation is going to, it's becoming either unproductive or unaffordable. And he said we've already plucked much of the low-lying fruit in the areas of what it is known as knowledge production. And again, that can be healthcare, that can be financial systems, that can be technology. Anything that improves our understanding of the world and our life in it falls into the category of knowledge production. And he said there's a substantial slowing that we're seeing there. And we've seen this in past civilizations, Tainer said. So he cites, for an example, research problems grow increasingly stubborn in his own experience, and he said it's more complex, and the effort of research actually increases while the output doesn't, and this is all very predictable. Diminishing returns, basically. And those diminishing returns then, of course, drive investors elsewhere. So Tainer says our current system of innovation is vulnerable to its own decline, which would mirror, if it continues on this trend, would mirror the decline of the factors that make it possible in past civilizations, the cost of energy and solid returns, investments, and all of that again. And but he has a hopeful message in the end of this from his research. He said, don't feel too bad about all this. He said that what he believes is really happening, and he believes what their research is showing, is that we've been in a bit of a 50, 60 year innovation bubble where we've had some really good luck, and we've covered a lot of ground and broken through a lot of barriers. But he said that amount of innovation, the technology revolutions we've seen 3 times over in that 60-year period, medical science revolutions that have occurred in that same time, advances to farming practices, our own way of approaching the world around us, mitigating and changing our own weather and climate as much as we have learned how to so far. He said all of this is actually an anomaly. To see a 50, 60-year period with this much change and innovation would actually be outside the norm of what you see in past civilizations. So he said no reason to panic. So again, a definitely noticeable slowing of innovation, and it fits with a pattern that is seen in past civilizations. But he said what makes this one unique is it probably doesn't portend the collapse of our civilization and the downfall of humanity. It probably more is indicative of our successes over the last 50, 60 years, and the fact that we've kind of hit we've solved all those low-hanging fruit problems, and now the problems that remain to be solved, where innovation will be drawn, are going to be a lot harder to tackle. Interestingly enough, though, he talks in this research about archaeological records from farming practices around 1000 AD. And he said those farming records show that farming practices changed very little for more than 3 millennia prior to that. So he said, that's an extreme example of a very slow pace. The last 50, 60 years here in our current time are an extreme example of a very rapid pace. And he said all of history equalizes to somewhere in between the two. He said there are periods that you can find over and over with hundreds of years in between major technology revolutions and new flashy ideas. So he said that's probably more the norm. And so his research, he believes, called The Collapse of Complex Societies, is the book he's written about it. He said it's probably us resetting to the mean as far as innovation and technological revolutions go. So don't expect this trend of the last 50, 60 years to keep up, but don't panic. It doesn't mean everything's falling apart. It's really interesting stuff. His book, again, The Collapse of Complex Societies, is available pretty much everywhere. And in the biography of the book, Tainer himself writes, he tries to connect anthropology, history, archaeology, and environmental science for this better understanding of a, quote, trajectory and consequences of innovation and complex social systems. It's pretty cool stuff. By the way, Tainer's work, coming right out of Utah State University, has been in films, television programs, and more. And his latest research, presented by the Quinney College, is going to be presented in a seminar series that the public will actually have a chance to attend. Check it out. I've posted a link to this article and Tainer's own comments and some details about his book on this research on our Facebook page at facebook.com/KVNUFTP. And we'll be back with more right after this.
I'm Mark Ensign. I'm running as a write-in candidate for an important local election. I'm running to resolve the conflicts between the current county executive and the county council. I'm asking you to write me in as your Cache County executive to restore order, trust, and cooperation to our county government.
Write in Mark Ensign for Cache County executive. Visit ensignforcachecounty.com to learn more. Paid for by Mark Ensign.
This is former Cache County executive Lynn Lemon. I wholeheartedly support Mark Ensign. I hope you will make the extra effort to write him in for county executive.
I think it's just vapor.
Vaping is safer than smoking, isn't it?
There's really not even that much nicotine in them, right?
One vape pod has as much nicotine as 1 pack of cigarettes.
My kid
knows it's dangerous. 5.4 million American kids vape, and most think it's harmless. Get your head out of the cloud. Talk to your kid about vaping. Visit talkaboutvaping.org. That's talkaboutvaping.org. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and the Ad Council.
Looking for ways to serve but don't know where to begin? Go to justserve.org, a free site to help those who want to serve find opportunities nearby. Just Serve has teamed up with organizations nationwide. Go to justserve.org and type in your city, and you'll see a list of service opportunities. Sign up on Just Serve to receive emails letting you know about new projects. Just Serve is fast, free, and easy. JustServe.org is provided as a service by The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Hi, this is Gordon Deal. Tuesday on This Morning, America's First News, why so many experts were caught off guard in forecasting the specific landfall of Hurricane Ian, plus the latest on recovery and cleanup. Also, House Democrats are now counting heavily on the abortion issue for the midterm elections. Hear how they've gone all in. And what to do if you get a heart alert from your smartwatch. Tuesday on This Morning, America's First News. From 4 to 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM. Your station for news and talk.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Again, if you want to read more about this, I've linked to it on our Facebook page. But just extending the conversation on this research, I find it fascinating because we have really been in the example I always use is specific to smartphones and our communication and social media and things like that. But if you think about it, so the iPhone was the first. And it started to be pretty widely adopted in 2008-ish, but things really didn't take off smartphone-wise until roughly between 2010 and 12. That was the 2 years when smartphones just kind of wiped away a lot of, not all of, but a lot of the personal computer use. Sale of laptops at the time, for example, was at its height. And by the next year, it was about a third of that. Now that's growing. People are rediscovering laptops and Chromebooks and even desktop tower PCs. Of course, businesses never drop them, most businesses. But although I do know a couple here in the Valley that did transition everything over to smartphone platforms, delivery companies and more. So. But my point is it hasn't really been that long, and yet it changed everything, and that's not hyperbole. There are some other examples of this. In fact, the internet itself, it had been around for about 30 years, and it wasn't until it was made accessible in the late 80s, early 90s, that some creative people saw potential uses for it and took some risks. And even then, it was something that didn't really take off. What really shot the internet into the public eye and had everyone wanting it was actually its adoption on campuses and at schools for inside the building communication, and that just became everyone was interested at that point. And this is many people listening might not even remember them, but you remember America Online? Did you ever have an America Online account, Bill, or did you ever set up one of their free discs? That's what they were known for.
I have to admit I did not have that. No.
That was I did. I had a few free trials, and then I discovered how hard it was to cancel. That was an unpleasant experience. But America Online was the first real internet revolution because it literally brought it into everyone's home. America Online is no longer a thing because broadband came along and just sort of made dial-up connections unnecessary. America Online tried really hard to sell themselves as something you needed on top of your broadband, but people didn't buy it, literally. So that was 6 years. 6 years from no one has internet except campuses, a few businesses with specific needs, and a few nerds out there who maybe saw the potential or even just thought it was cool for their own personal use for some reason. This really was, a technological revolution. Now, the internet, again, the internet existed. I remember way back when I was a college student at USU, people going to the computer labs to play the MUDs, the multi-user games that were literally just text. That's it. It was a text game, just an ongoing story, and you'd play with thousands of people from all over the world. And there'd always be, every computer lab would always have 5 or 6 people sitting in there playing those, sometimes till the wee hours or the lab closed. That was, that would have been, I think those first started in 90, 91. But still, again, my point here is limited usage. And then 95-ish, it just became a thing. And by 2001, when broadband came along, everybody was ready for that. By 2002 or 3, broadband had taken over, and the internet became what we know it is today. And then, of course, the smartphone revolution in between there. Again, this is it seems like forever because we've all acclimated so well, and we can't remember a world of Post-it notes and notebooks and pens before smartphones and things like that. But although I've recently rediscovered Post-it notes and pens, they're actually easier. We'll do a whole show on that one day. Whether technology is actually making things easier. But the point, again, is this has been a rapid sequence of changes. The difficult part of this is it has left a lot of people behind. There are a lot of baby boomers out there who maybe because of what they did for work or didn't do for work, they never had much reason to get to know, computing in the 90s and maybe, they eventually got dial-up or even broadband at home, but they were mainly using it for email and Facebook. Then along comes the smartphone and the app world, which they're now forced into, like it or not, they're forced into it. And a lot of times there's now been 3 steps of technology revolution that have left them behind a little bit. And it can be very confusing and sort of isolating for them, too. It can lock them out. In fact, I spoke with a retiree looking to get back into the workforce part-time recently, and that was the challenge that she was running up against, is that she had a smartphone, but she wasn't really familiar with it outside of calls, texts, and checking her email and getting on Instagram. And so some of the things they were asking her to do, she wasn't sure if she should do, and it was very confusing for her. And again, this is technology that's not even 15 years old, really. That's new. We don't think of it as new, and that's what Trader and the researchers at USU are getting at, and what their research is showing is that it's actually the last 50 to 60 years that have been atypical. A slowdown would not be a slowdown in innovation and technology revolutions. A slowdown would actually put us back closer to the average mean time frame on these types of things. The last 50, 60 years, we've seen things at a rapid pace that, as Traders research is showing, is not reflected at any other time in history. And it's just a given that it's unsustainable. As he said in their research, we've plucked all the low-hanging fruit. I think there's still areas we can go. I think nanotechnology. My one prediction that I'll make, and I'll probably be long dead before I'm proven right or wrong, virtual reality is not taking off. That's one sci-fi trope. I know Facebook, or Meta rather, is chasing it, and others. That is not a world that people are going to live in. There may be commerce and business, and it may get big, but I think that the timing is off for that to be, like a revolution like the smartphone was. That's my prediction when it comes to virtual reality. But we are already living in a pretty much digital and virtual world already, including our currency, how we interact with news and entertainment. It's a hybrid of the two, and so this is good, but it's all happened so quickly. It's out of the ordinary, and so we've solved all the easy problems, And like I say, I think there's a few more steps we can take. I think nanotechnology is coming next. I think you're also going to see, something, again, out of sci-fi tropes. I think you're going to start to see, things you can get installed inside you, technology-wise. I think that's coming around the corner, too. But after that, as Trader predicts in his research out of USU, there's going to be a massive slowdown, and that's probably not a bad thing. Mitch on the line. Mitch, your thoughts on all of this?
Yeah, two different things. Number one, just dealing with like kids in school and stuff like that, I would point out with the smartphone versus computer versus when we talk about how different that is, I got students who can do an awful lot on a phone and can't do crap on a computer.
Sure.
Simple thing like copy and paste.
Yeah.
But they keep getting told, copy and paste into this, do this. They have no clue how to do that because they've never been explicitly taught, because everyone's like, oh, these are kids. They're computer literate. So no one bothers to check that they actually have those skills.
Sure.
Because, I'm sorry, copying on a phone looks different than copying on a computer.
Yeah, I had one of my highlights as an old Mitch. One of my highlights recently is getting to kind of roll my eyes and scoff at a 12-year-old I'm related to who didn't know how to install a program on a desktop PC. I'm like, you novice, scooch over. I'm kidding. I didn't say that. I thought it, though, because usually it's the 12-year-old showing us up, right? No, you make a good point.
You hand him the smartphone and see what he shows you how to do.
Oh, yeah, I acknowledge that.
You got to remember, they're getting a different skill set.
Sure. How do you think?
But then,
how does that translate into things like your area of expertise, learning?
Well, you either fight it or you adopt it. And so I've got kids who will do assignments for me on a smartphone because they're more comfortable doing it on a smartphone.
Okay.
You ask me to do the same thing, and I think I'd rather, just slip my wrist and do push-ups in salt water because it'd be less painful.
Sure. I've tried typing lengthy things in email on my smartphone, and it's difficult.
Yeah, but I had a kid turn in a whole essay she wrote on a smartphone.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
It's different. I'm like, it's difficult for me because that's not what I learned on. I learned on a keyboard. I mean, I got a touchpad on my laptop. I won't use it.
Sure.
I went and bought a wireless mouse that I carry around with me because I will not use the touchpad on my laptop because it gives me a migraine trying to function with it.
Yeah.
Then, to go to the research they were doing, I want to add something that needs to be just discussed quickly with this.
Okay.
Yes, we probably would be better with the slowdown, but there is a significant economic pressure not to. I mean, all the tech bros with their, if you've heard of Web 3.0, and, we're going to put this on the blockchain, and they are a problem looking for a solution looking for a problem, and it's not even a solution to anything.
Sure.
I mean, you said we've solved the low-hanging fruit. I'm going to argue, no, we haven't. We've good enough the low-hanging fruit and never bothered to actually solve any of it, really.
I think, I think that's an excellent point. That's an important clarification. We've good enough the low-hanging fruit problems. We haven't really solved many of them. Good point.
And the people pitching the solutions are all about making their money on it, not actually solving the problem.
Sure. Like, I've still yet to meet anyone of any age group that is just chomping at the bit for a self-driving car. I know.
It terrifies me.
I know like 4 people that get caught up on bandwagons enough that they went and got one. But most of the people I know, it's not on their radar. I'm sure they won't say no if they're here, and that's what everyone else is doing.
People, I'd rather their car drove than them, but that's a whole other conversation.
Touche. I know a couple of people like that. Yeah, and I'm not saying this shouldn't happen or that it's dangerous. I mean, I think it could be dangerous, but I'm not, saying it would be bad if we had self-driving cars. I'm just saying I don't know where this pressure to make it happen is coming from. It almost feels like it's just been created by the industry wanting to make self-driving cars a thing.
Well, it's because certain members of the industry, that's their idea that they think they're going to make all their big money on.
Sure.
That's the tech bro in that one.
Yeah.
The same as the people like well, what if all your medical records are on the blockchain? I'm like, you mean put all my private data out where as soon as someone hacks it, it's available to everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a great plan. Look, I've written software before. I joke around that, the people with all the technology are not technology people that know it. It's the people who don't know it, because anybody who knows it, they're like me. They've got a printer at home that they keep a loaded gun next to so they can shoot it if it ever makes an unexpected sound.
Sure.
Amazon saying, we want to have access to your door lock.
Not a good idea.
That is like the most horribly stupid idea I've ever heard in my entire life. And even if I trusted Amazon, that's still a stupid idea, which I don't.
That's, Mitch, you bring up something important, which is a great place to leave this, because all of this blockchain is a great example. Blockchain is actually amazing until it breaks, at which point if it breaks and it doesn't keep things secure, everything goes. Not just one account. Everything goes. So, we need to be careful about where we go. But, Mitch, you bring up a good point. This is where the usefulness of some of us of our age group comes in, because we are going to be more skeptical of these things. We're going to be the ones to say, oh, yeah, that's cool that Amazon can unlock your door for you by you shouting. That's cool. Fun. Is it a good idea? What happens when it listens to someone else? What happens when someone else figures out how to make it listen to someone else, which is really not that hard to do? We need to think about this. Same with Ring doorbells. Everyone has one right now. I get it. It's cool. You get a picture on your phone when someone rings your bell. Wonderful, amazing stuff. There are some civil rights questions around this. What happens when the companies who make all of these are just sharing your video without you even knowing with law enforcement or the FBI when they want to investigate someone, one of your neighbors? They're just doing that. That's literally happening right now. But also, you're exposing your home to all kinds of security risks if you don't get the right one. There's an argument to be made that we haven't, as Mitch said, we've kind of just good enough to all of this. We haven't asked the right questions, and yet we're ready to move on and say, all right, we're going to jump into the world of self-driving cars, artificial intelligence, and calling people like Elon Musk geniuses because he was good at one thing and got rich. Maybe we should be asking more questions. Mitch, appreciate the call. Listeners, appreciate you tuning in. We've got to get to the news here. We'll be back right after this look at the news with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 5:42, and the news is brought to you by Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology. After using the same logo for about 32 years, which was a variation of the golf course logo, Smithfield City has a new logo. On KVNU's For the People program last week, Smithfield Mayor Chris Monson said the new design emphasizes simplicity, and she told us about the winning designer.
So her name is Megan Bally, and she is a Skyview graduate. She lives in Smithfield. She's a mother of 3, and she is a professional web designer. She actually has been published and helped do things for National Geographic.
And Monson said that Bally, along with the other finalists, were very accommodating if they were asked to make modifications to their design.
In fact, I didn't say that after we got our top 3, we went back and said, can you change the colors? Can you add this element? Can you do this? And everybody worked, those 3 people just worked incredibly well with us and changed things around and got it just to the point that we wanted it. And she has been absolutely awesome to work with. So I feel pretty blessed that she came out with such a great design, but is so willing to work with us.
Monson said, again, in the interest of not adding any financial burden to the city or its residents, they are doing a slow rollout of the new logo. A single vehicle crash that killed a Cache County man and his 2-year-old son over the weekend. The accident was reported shortly after 1 p.m. Saturday off southbound I-215 West and 1000 South in Salt Lake City. According to a statement from the Department of Public Safety, Travis Waite and his 2-year-old boy Prescott died in the crash. Utah Highway Patrol troopers responded to the scene after receiving calls about a blue Dodge pickup truck which was driving and then suddenly went off the highway and into a small ravine nearby. UHP located the truck, which had overturned into a gully that was filled with water. The two died at the scene, but were not identified Saturday as troopers worked to notify Waite's family. An investigation is ongoing. According to DPS, it was not immediately known what caused the pickup to suddenly swerve, and authorities have not released information on whether factors such as road debris, drowsy or distracted driving, or DUI were part of the investigation. And law enforcement is investigating a fatal crash that occurred near Blackfoot, Idaho. The vehicle collision occurred around 7:20 Sunday morning on northbound US 91 at milepost 97 in Bingham County. According to the Idaho State Police, a 24-year-old man from Blackfoot was driving a 2004 Jeep Grand Cherokee southbound on US 91. An 82-year-old man from Blackfoot was driving a 2017 Ford F-150 pickup northbound in the turn lane when the vehicles collided in front of the Sage Hill gas station. The driver of the Ford pickup was wearing a seatbelt. The driver of the Jeep was not. Both drivers were transported by ground ambulance to local hospitals. The driver of the Jeep was later pronounced dead. That incident remains under investigation by the Idaho State Police. KBNU News Time is 5:46.
Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology cares about you and your hearing. Dr. Paul Danes has always called Cache Valley home and cares about its people. And Dr. Danes offers state-of-the-art equipment, allowing him to provide the best service and care possible when it comes to your hearing. So if your hearing isn't what it used to be, give Dr. Danes a call at 753-HEAR or visit CacheValleyHearing.com to see what they can do for you.
Back what you've been missing. Bring back Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology.
KBNU weather for tonight, mostly clear skies, low around 40, and then sunny, mid-70s tomorrow, mid-70s, plenty of sunshine on Wednesday. It's been to 70. Right now it's 69 at KBNU. KBNU weather brought to you by U&I Furniture. Their showroom is full. Warehouse is full. Orders from the last 12 months have all showed up. During the overstock sale, lots of furniture to shop. With inflation on the rise, manufacturers are offering great deals not seen for a few years. Always a better buy at U&I, 28 West, 1st North, downtown Logan. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
There's a lot going on right now, and broadcasters are on the ground covering all of it, bringing you the weather, the traffic, and breaking news, all while entertaining you 24 hours a day. Someone needs to tell you what's going on around the world and in our hometowns. And that someone is us. We are free radio. We are always there. We are broadcasters. Visit wearebroadcasters.com or text radio to 52886 to learn more. Furnished by NAB and this station.
I will be right by your side.
Women can have it all, including heart attacks. But symptoms like jaw pain, nausea, unusual fatigue, dizziness, and backache are often different and more subtle than for a man. The fact is, heart disease is the #1 killer of women. Know the signs. Learn more at getheartchecked.org. From Women's Heart Alliance, in partnership with Women Heart.
Coming up on the Tuesday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show, the latest on the Ukrainian offensive against the Russian invaders. Is there a real possibility here that Putin could decide to go with a nuclear response? We'll dive into this, plus Clay.
It's officially 5 weeks until the midterm. What do we expect? What are the polls telling us? We'll break it all down for you. Come hang on Clay and Buck.
10 to 1 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM at 610 AM.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. I know just a week ago I was arguing with everyone on whether summer was over or not, and I find
summer is over.
Yeah,
it's autumn.
I've given up. It is,
but it's still nice. It's beautiful out there.
Well, it is over officially on the calendar now, so it's hard to argue with that. Calendars, are what they are. Also, yeah, as you mentioned, Bill, it's very autumn-like out there, temperature-wise, especially at nights. Today felt a little more like August warm to me for a bit there, but the leaves, I just have to point this out, the leaves are changing.
They haven't changed on the mountain so much.
Oh, head up Logan Canyon.
Okay.
Yeah. It's.
I haven't been. I have to admit, I haven't
the colors,
been in the canyons past few days.
The colors up there are amazing, but we all know this is not peak. So this is when the amateurs from out of the valley come through and see the pretty leaves, and they take their pictures. And I encourage them to get it out of their system so that you're not all out there when we, who know when peak time is.
Yeah.
Peak time is not upon us yet. But I did see a lot of yellows and reds in Logan Canyon over the weekend, making a trip over to Bear Lake. So it was, it's beautiful now if you want to go look. But again, not peak. It's a little bit of an update from the state of Utah. This is good news. This was literally the only information the state had today on the drought. They do these Monday reports. And so this is good news. Despite being 21% for the year below regular snowpack. Now, obviously, you have to realize this is the entire year total so far. So this is the amount of snowfall we got in the January, February, March, April time frame, because, of course, we didn't expect get any snow, which was very predictable throughout the summer. So this is just the spring months. We landed after that very last snowstorm, which was actually a pretty big one. We landed at about 21% below normal here in northern Utah, snowpack. So that's where we entered the summer. We did get some significant rains a few times, actually, through the summer. Do you remember, Bill, 2 or 3? We had 2 or 3 decent storms in July and early August.
Well, and in late September, too, had some thunderstorms.
We did have a big one late September, a really
remnants
big one.
of that old tropical storm, I think.
That's right. And June was a little bit of a wetter June than June usually is. Overall, though, what this adds up to is we're still in an extreme drought situation, but reservoirs have held, and they're attributing this mainly to everyone's conservation efforts this summer, so good job, everybody. But conservation efforts alone, because no new developments have been completed, things like that, conservation efforts alone have reservoirs up to where they were in the same time last year. So despite it being the second year of drought, despite the fact that we've had no significant change to our overall, I mean, the storms were great, but they didn't add a lot. Other than, it's good to have the ground saturated around those reservoirs. You lose less into the ground then. So, and the rivers swell for a day or two, but then they're back to average or where they were at. So overall, the picture is still drought, still very concerning, still very severe. But, and we started the year again 21% below where we should have been snowpack-wise. Also, dust in the air from the Great Salt Lake drying out and more means the snowpack melted faster. All this has been predicted. It's a dire situation, and hopefully it turns around. And if not, hopefully if it becomes a new normal, hopefully we have some solutions right on the horizon to use water more smartly, use less of it, basically, and develop more smartly. So all of that said, the state is working on it. The report today from the Utah Division of Natural Resources and the Utah Department of Water Quality, who team up on these reports, the reservoirs are at the same level they were at this same time last year, which doesn't sound like huge news, right? Big whoop, same level as last year. Considering how we started the year, the 21% lower snowpack than average, which the drier spring, a bit wetter of a June than normally, but not significant water long term. Great storms through the summer, a few of them, but still not significant enough to make a dent in any of this. And what is so far been and will likely be a very dry fall, just like last year, it could be a lot worse. And again, the reason this is noteworthy is that water managers and officials with the state, as they made this announcement with the report today, said, keep in mind, no new developments are online yet. There have been some improvements and upgrades made to certain reservoirs here and there, but this is all still in the earliest stages. The funding from the state to get on top of this water issue and the drought issue in Utah, still in the earliest stages, and yet we're sitting. We shouldn't be sitting where we were last year, and we are. And then water managers said that is entirely the result of conservation efforts made by individual households and families. So big thumbs up, everybody. The expectation was that we would be 15 to 20% lower in our reservoirs by this time of the year this year, because we started the year in such a down situation with the snowpack and more. So to hit the same reservoir levels as this exact same week last year is actually a pretty big achievement. And again, officials today attribute it entirely to conservation efforts on the part of individual Utahns. So hats off. Pat yourself on the back. And hopefully it turns around weather-wise and climate-wise sometime soon. We'll be back right after this.
Even though the weather's grown colder, you still have time to have your fruit trees pruned. Logan Extermination says your trees need to be trimmed back in order to achieve success next year. And this is the first step to a bountiful harvest. However, you could do more bad than good if you don't know what you're doing. Save the headache and call Logan Extermination today and get a jump on tree pruning. Prices will vary depending on your needs. Logan Extermination, 752-8450.
We may be thousands of miles apart, but we can still connect. And when we do, we make things better. At Child Fund, we connect children all around the world with what they need to grow up healthy, educated, and safe. Together, we co-create connections that help millions of children who live in poverty worldwide, and their families, and their communities, and you. Join us. Together, we can make the world a better place. 2 small worlds at a time. Visit childfund.org to learn more.
Hi, this is Gordon Deal. Tuesday on This Morning, America's First News, why so many experts were caught off guard in forecasting the specific landfall of Hurricane Ian, plus the latest on recovery and cleanup. Also, House Democrats are now counting heavily on the abortion issue for the midterm elections. Hear how they've gone all in. And what to do if you get a heart alert from your smartwatch. Tuesday on This Morning, America's First News. From 4 to 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM. Your station for news and talk.
I don't know if I thanked Mitch. Mitch, if you're out there still listening, thank you for that call. During our discussion of technology revolutions and this research at USU showing that it's likely we've been living in a bubble of rapid revolution that will burst and will settle back down to a mean, which is technology revolution every roughly 50 to 100 years instead of every decade like we've seen for the last 50 years. So Mitch pointed out that I said we'd solve some problems, low-hanging fruit problems, and what will cause the slowdown is we're out of those low-hanging fruit problems. And Mitch wanted to clarify that we haven't solved a lot of them. We did good enough. We did good enough and moved on. And that's an excellent point, because the real problems are still out there on a lot of these, especially when it comes to our environment and our planet. Which you can't really get away without one. So, and we're not exactly ready to leave for another one yet, despite what Elon tries to say in his tweets. It's definitely something to keep an eye on. The research itself is out there. There's a book that the professor has written about this as well, professor from Utah State University, and I've linked to both on our Facebook page. But I just wanted to take a minute and thank Mitch, because that was an important clarification I'd left out. Tomorrow on the program, Pew Research shocked a lot of people until they saw how it was done and decided it was credible with a report that said in the United States, in the next 40 years, Christians will no longer be the majority of people who live in the United States. But why was a big question. Well, Pew has done some research on what they're calling religious switching. And it means it's a much more nuanced thing than what that headline last spring might have made everyone think. We'll talk about it tomorrow on the show. Also, USU homecoming coming up this weekend. We'll have some details on events that are planned, how the community can get out and celebrate along with students and athletes and more. That's tomorrow on For the People. Dave Ramsey is next here on KVNU Logan.
Following the big stories, News Talk KVNU, Logan. Proud to be locally owned and operated by the Cache Valley Media Group.